Hello and welcome to World Talks, where every word matters. I'm your host, Sasha Farbach. Now, security and support for Ukraine. Those were the topics that stood front and center as the new president of Slovakia, Peter Pellegrini, arrived in Warsaw on Thursday for talks with Polish President Andrzej Duda. The two heads of state discussed cooperation across a variety of formats, including the V4, NATO and the European Union. Now, to analyze the bilateral visit, I'm joined by Rasťo Kužel, director of Mimo 98. Welcome so much to the program. Good to have you.
Thank you very much.
So before we begin some analysis here, I'd like to play for you and our viewers just a short clip of what both presidents said today at their meeting in Warsaw. Let's roll that now.
We talked about our cooperation as part of the Visegrad Group, the Bucharest 9 and the 3Cs initiative, and of course the two most important ones, the EU and NATO, particularly NATO, because as you know, President Pellegrini and I will travel to Washington for the NATO summit, a very important meeting. Mr. Pellegrini will be representing Slovakia and I will be representing Poland. We will be making some very important decisions in Washington, so that's what we discussed. Poland, as our northern neighbor, is our strategic partner, both because of our economic exchange and the investment value. Poland is among three countries that are our biggest economic partners and investors in Slovakia. This year we're commemorating a shared journey. We've both faced a number of crises and challenges, and both of our countries have overcome them.
All right, so there we have some introductory words there, but something that was left out there, it seemed that support, President Pellegrini said he would not stand in the way of support for Ukraine, which goes against what he said before his campaign and what Robert Fico has done. So is there now a shift here? Is this now a new Slovakia on the side of Poland and on the side of Ukraine?
I wouldn't say there is a shift. Even during the campaign and actually from the very beginning of the Russian aggression in Ukraine, the members of the incumbent government basically claimed that this was a violation of international law, and they basically explained that they support the position of Ukraine. The only thing where I actually saw the disagreements, particularly during today's visit, was about when the NATO should start negotiations with Ukraine. And perhaps one additional thing, what I found interesting was President Pellegrini actually clarified that while Slovakia has stopped providing lethal equipment from its army reserves to Ukraine, the government supports commercial production of weapon systems, including ammunition, through joint investments in state enterprises. And this, I think, is different to what especially Prime Minister Fico said during the campaign to the parliamentary elections, when he basically said, or he made a pledge rather, not a single bullet to Ukraine. So in that sense, I think there is a clarification, but clearly I wouldn't call this a different position vis-a-vis Ukraine.
All right. And also, I think what was mentioned here earlier was that the various formats, and we've talked about Visegrad 4, V4, sometimes called V2 because of the changing political landscapes, also the 3Cs initiative. So these regional formats, how relevant are they at this moment in time? Do they still have the same clout? Where do they stand on these issues, these two countries?
Well, it was clearly visible during the recent V4 summit in Prague that Slovakia sides with Hungary in showing more or less open sympathies towards Russia, which I think has clearly created these tensions within the Visegrad 4, because clearly this is in conflict with a very pro-Ukrainian position of Poland and the Czech Republic. So clearly one could say that there are frictions within the V4 with the countries basically divided according to the support or not support towards Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. And also curious about, because President Duda mentioned this, that he would like the support of this pipeline, the Central European pipeline system, very much a NATO concept, goes back to the late 50s, which literally stops at the German side, the Western German side. Is there appetite from Slovakia to also support the expansion of that onto the eastern front of NATO?
To be honest, I'm not aware of this so much. I haven't really heard that there would be such appetite here. So this is something that I haven't really followed in the media here, or I have not really heard much discussion about this.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, also, I think with the significance of Slovakia there as well, part of NATO's eastern flank. I mean, you've told us a little bit more about sort of a different way of how Slovakia is still supporting in a commercial way, which is quite a smart way to do it as well, some might say. What can we expect now with this upcoming NATO summit in Washington in the next few days, really? Can we expect Slovakia that's playing on the same side as the other 32 together, or something else?
Well, Mr. Pellegrini already mentioned that Slovakia would not block any decisions by NATO. So I don't expect that that this would be the case, that we would somehow block the decisions. But I think his position will very much remain in the same position as it is the position of the government. So he will not somehow change the position simply because he's now representing Slovakia and may be considered to be a more moderate politician when it comes to support Ukraine. So I think there will be no major blockings, but I think Slovakia will remain its position, which is similar to Hungary. So we'll not perhaps discuss the very speedy sort of acceptance of Ukraine into NATO, or anything along those lines.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Hungary, and also I want to backtrack to June 11th, which saw the Bucharest 9 summit, a collection of all the heads of state of 9 countries, mostly on the eastern flank. That took place in Riga. Very conspicuous absence of President Pellegrini. Also, previous president, he wasn't sworn in yet, he wasn't there, but also President Suljuk of Hungary not there. What's your assessment of this format? Is this now something that is frozen? Is it as relevant as it was in the past? How do you assess it from your point of view?
Exactly. I would compare it to the situation within the Visegrad 4. I think there is a clear dividing line in the way how these different countries basically see the situation, in Ukraine, and so I think this will be and will remain to be the main topic that will continue dividing countries according to their support, towards Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk a little bit more about President Pellegrini himself. I mean, President Duda very much coming to the end of his term. There will be elections soon in Poland as well next year. Mr. Pellegrini is just beginning that, and very much, I think, the only Slovak politician also was, I believe, head of Speaker of Parliament and Prime Minister as well, now President. There's a lot of experience there, politically close to Robert Fico. Tell us more about what you're expecting from this partnership in Bratislava.
I think Mr. Pellegrini will remain in Mr. Fico's shadow. I mean, there was a small window of opportunity to form a different government with the current opposition, but he clearly chose to form a government with Mr. Fico and his Smer party, even though he knew what consequences this would have for Slovakia. So, and this, I think, will remain to be his legacy. And I also think he enjoys being a Slovak president. He will therefore not dramatically divert from the policies of the incumbent government.
Mm-hmm. And President Pellegrini also met Prime Minister Tusk in Warsaw. They also had a meeting and a sit-down, I think. And what do you make of that? I mean, obviously, Prime Minister Tusk in a very much leading role, not just in Poland, but also across Europe. So what do you say about that dynamic between the two men?
Well, clearly, as we have already mentioned, there were frictions and disagreements visible during that Prague summit. I think this will continue to be so. But it has to be said that Mr. Pellegrini, again, is certainly considered to be more moderate than Mr. Fico, specifically in terms of his rhetorics, even though it has to be mentioned that, he clearly used the topic of military support to Ukraine also during his campaign, as he portrayed his opponent, Mr. Kochok, as a warmonger who could drag Slovakia into the conflict. And so he did not stop to using such warmongering during the campaign. And I think, even though he seems to be behaving more in a moderate way, but I think he continues to be using the subject for his own political purposes.
Mm-hmm. And just last question, looking at all the range of hybrid attacks, disinformation, Slovakia has very much been also a victim of a lot of disinformation campaigns. If you look back at the elections, and even before that, tell us a little bit about the assessment of there. What's the next step there? Is Slovakia doing anything now after the attempted assassination attack? What's with the changes with the broadcaster? Give us a little bit more of the mood right now in Slovakia on all those topics.
I think it's really very unfortunate, and we all condemned the assassination attempt on Mr. Fico. I think this was considered to be an attack on our democracy. But if someone was hoping that this could, present an opportunity to somehow stop this polarization, unfortunately, it's not the case. And I would actually say that it has been to some extent used also by the incumbent government to further push some of their policies. We already don't have the previous public broadcaster who was criticized by the incumbent government, even though there was no evidence provided that it would not provide objective and accurate coverage. So we already have the new broadcaster, while many of us believe there was no such need, and we basically fear that this was clearly done for political purposes. There is a law in the first, it passed the first reading in the parliament, so it goes to the second reading in September, which is infamously known as the foreign agent law, which would dramatically impact the civil society here. So we unfortunately have all reasons to be very much concerned about the stage at which we are, and that's unfortunately has been only amplified after the assassination attempt.
Right, so still many issues that we'll have to analyze for another time. That was Rasťo Kužel. Thank you so much there for all those insights from Slovakia. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
And that concludes World Talks, but stay tuned. Much more coming up right here on TVP World. Goodbye.